Welcome to my humble abode. I'm Yorkie the Tail Spinner. This Tales over coffee. We start the day together with a narrative game and a cup of coffee. We return now to Ukraine war stories. This one kind of hits me hard just because it's based on real life. It's stories from Ukrainians, or based on Ukrainian experience of the Russian invasion, the early part thereof. We finished hostomel. The devastating situation. Let's go on to Bucha. I forget how to pronounce it. Forgive me. The arrival. Incoming calls. Mum 3. We're with Yana here. This will all be over soon, I promise. Mum kept telling me this and Vika that for the last few hours. First in Kiev, when we woke up to the sirens, and now after a 2-hour drive in Bucha. Forgive me, since that's her main name, I need to look it up.
SpeechModification.com presents how to pronounce Bucha.
It's Bucha, okay. First in Kiev, and then we woke up to the sirens, and now after a 2-hour drive in Bucha. Are you sure they won't manage without you? Vika pleaded, giving Mum a hug. The last in a long time, I thought. I was so proud when Mum joined Kiev's territorial defense just a few months ago. I was also worried sick. Honey, I have to go back. They'll need qualified doctors there. And we can't just let the Russians have the city, can we? It's the sad part of being an adult, Mum smiled. Sad part of having neighbours like that, I grumbled. Mum, do you have to go alone? I could help, I could carry ammo at least. Mum sighed, shook her head. Yannick, this isn't a game. I was being serious though. Katya will take care of you in the meantime, and I will call you every time I can, so keep the phone close by. We all shared a big hug. Vika couldn't hold back tears, and I managed somehow. I was the man of the house now, even if nobody else recognised it. Before leaving, Mum just stood there and looked at us for a long time. She tried to smile so I wouldn't notice her lips quivering. I always notice things like that, but I kept silent. Vika told her that she'd take care of me, and I said I'd take care of Vika. Mum laughed through her tears and said Katya would take care of both of us. And then she was speeding away back to Kiev. Well, it's just us and Katya now. You ready to be babysat? I smiled. Me and Vika didn't always agree, but we were equally confused at the prospect of staying with Katya. She was Mum's local friend, but we didn't know her all that much. She was alright, I guess, kind, friendly, loved children, or so she said. But I was 15 and Vika 2 years my senior. We didn't need a babysitter. I didn't tell Mum that though. She seemed to be having a hard time already, and I didn't want to make her even more upset. That was our dad's job, even after they divorced. Wow. The realities of family life even in the war zone. Vika, Yannick, I'm so glad your mum brought you here. We'll all be safe together. Katya is Katarina. Katya pulled us into a tight hug, but when she showed up and gave me and Vika a smooch on the forehead each. I tried hard to avoid mine, but failed. The rest of the day we spent following the news. Russian airborne repelled in hostomel. Roadblocks on the way to Kiev. President Zelensky addresses the nation. Russian forces sighted in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Territorial defense issued anti-tank weapons. And in the evening, when we could hear the gunfire and explosions in the north gain, Russians gained a foothold in Hostomel. The popping and cracking of explosions were so loud, it felt like a stray shell might as well land on us. I have to admit, I was anxious listening to it. Mom's reason for leaving us in Bucha was that the northwest would be of no interest to the Russians. Yet here they were, sinking their teeth into Hostomel. It was probably close enough that I could spy it from the roof. Yarek, don't be stupid. Katya said we should stay in the basement until the shooting stops. Vika must have noticed that I wasn't pleased. Hey, it's gonna be fun. Katya brought some board games from home, and some snacks too. Anything to keep you occupied, I guess. Can we skip the snacks? I had serious doubts about the board games Katya liked to play. Vika sighed and lowered her voice. Listen, she's freaking out a bit. But she means well, and Mum wants us to stay together, so can we just try and keep the peace, please? We'll join the game. Fine, I sighed. The game was called Carcassonne. I believe that's an actual board game, and it's actually meant to be really good. I don't know, I've never played it, but I have heard of it, and I think I've heard some good things. Anyway, a classic not unlike Monopoly. Problem was, I preferred computer games, not ones where all the excitement had to be imagined. This would be a chore to get through. Or so I thought. Katya turned out to be a lot of fun once she started being herself. She was younger than Mum, but not by much. But too young to be our mother, so we could all be casual. And the board game wasn't bad either. I have a bunch of these at home. I used to date a guy who was really into them. This is fun. When all this is over, we should play again, but get Mum to join in. Believe me, I tried. Your mum is stone cold when it comes to games. Oh, I know. I suppose I was a little salty about all the time she chewed me out for playing too much video games. But we'll convince her. The first day of the war was coming to a close, but the fighting outside only got harder. Still, we got through the one day. How much worse could it get? We were all going to make it. Right, so Vika and Katerina are in good mood. Yarek, not so much. Incoming calls from Mum, 5. I've always loved war movies and video games, where the characters were fearless, fought against all kinds of adversity, and always won, of course. Even if they died, it was only after completing the mission, fulfilling their duty. Wow, foreshadowing much? The real war was different. It was all distant explosions, air raid sirens, and constant fear. And armoured vehicles outside our window to remind us that people were dying only a few kilometres away from our house. And this was the so-called rear. The Russians weren't even hitting us directly yet. I tried not to think about how our soldiers on the front line must have felt when Mum was among them. This war wasn't an adventure anymore. That day, Katya decided to go out into the city and look for something. She said she was only leaving for a little while, but then she was gone for almost 2 hours. I could tell Vika was worried, but she tried not to show it. She always did that, just like our mum, and I could always tell it was just an act. By now, me and Vika had gotten a lot friendlier than before. We used to argue a lot, but not so much now. I suppose we were both too scared for our lives to get hung up on little things. Too bad Mum couldn't see us. Maybe it would help a bit, knowing we behaved ourselves. It's a beautiful touch, and yeah. Katya came back in a hurry, swinging the door wide open, then shutting it loudly behind her. Her face was white as snow. Vika dashed towards her. Katya, what happened? What took you so long? She paused when she noticed Katya's state. Are you okay? Yes, I just need a moment. Her voice was shaking. Katya took a deep breath, then looked me dead in the eye. The Russians are in the city. I saw our soldiers shooting back at them. Me and Vika froze. The war was suddenly much, much closer to us. Our boys are holding them off for now, but the Russians have so many tanks. I saw them. They were firing at the houses. She quickly got up, looking around. I watched her pace around the room, and I really wanted to help her calm her down, but I just couldn't see how. I was afraid too. Vika looked as lost as we did. Katya got an idea first. She went to the minibar and got a bottle of wine from it. After some hesitation, she took it to the kitchen. Me and Vika exchanged looks. Katya was obviously in distress, but was it really a good time to drink? Probably not, honestly. I know for myself I sometimes enjoy the taste of alcohol. Sherry, some wines, beer. Given I'm diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I've learned not to drink more than a little bit of it because it lowers inhibitions and that can be dangerous. Tell Mum, no, I'm not going to worry, Mum. Won't interfere. I shrugged. If Katya thinks it would help her. Vika pursed her lips but said nothing. She was always the prim and proper one, always trying to stay in Mum's good graces. One more reason we often didn't get along, she always sided with the adults when they were displeased with me. After all, I was a little boy, I didn't know better. It's like she was just trying to rile me up sometimes. How we see our younger siblings. Well, I don't have any, but I've seen it from others. So frankly, I didn't mind what Katya was doing. I said from the very beginning, we didn't need a babysitter. We would have managed on our own, but Mum wanted to hear none of it. Katya turned out to be fun, though. I guess people called it young at heart. She was more like a friend than a babysitter. The three of us were sort of just living together, wow. And we all felt much safer for it. But it was becoming pretty obvious that Katya was handling the situation even worse than we were. Well, she's up to mood 3. Incoming calls from Mum 8. I felt awful about Mum. She wouldn't tell me how things were in Kiev. And she tried to seem calm and confident, but I could see right through her. The whole Kiev region was getting dangerous too. Mum couldn't pick us up. The Russians had almost cut us off, and they fired upon any civilian car they saw. Since February 24th, nobody was ever going to be safe. I was the man of the house. I had to be there for Vika and Katya, but who would be there for Mum? Constant worrying made every day longer than the previous one. Katya didn't drink since the last time, but she talked. She talked a lot to me, to Vika, to herself. I felt sorry for her, but I couldn't help her. She talked to me with a blank look. And one day, she started talking about how we were running out of food. With tears in her eyes, she gathered us before the front door. I will go get us more food from my house. It will only be a minute. After she gave Vika a smooch on her forehead, I didn't have to even try to escape mine. Seeing Katya so worried was tearing me to pieces. I'll try and get some sweets too. Candies maybe. Maybe a new board game. Don't worry, it will only be a minute. We waited for 3 hours, and all the while, the shooting was creeping closer. Me and Vika sat under one of the stronger walls. The shooting was so bad. I was afraid the house would fold on us, like a cheap deck of cards. We held each other, though Vika probably thought she was the big one holding me, or the one holding me, big sister and all that. Outside, I could hear the rumbling of a vehicle engine, the tracks rolling over asphalt and cracking of gunfire. It was all shouting and high-speed death. Bang! Mom slammed into our front door and started knocking on it with her fists. Yana, are you guys inside? Let me in, please! I felt Vika's hold tighten on me. I was scared enough, as it was since I recognized the voice. It was Serhi, the local veteran. Yana, please, are you inside? He knew Mum since 2015, when she stitched his head together. As he called it, one of the many soldiers Mum treated over the years. The shouting and the gunfire kept creeping closer. I had to help Serhi, but I also had to take care of Vika if the Russians found us. And we can't do that. We can't let him in. We can't draw attention to ourselves. Too afraid. I heard Serhi take off away from the front door. He couldn't wait for us forever. Vika was shivering like a leaf in the wind. Hell, I was afraid too. I wanted to get up and open the door, but I didn't. I wanted to shout at least, let Serhi know we were inside. I didn't. Then the door flew open without a knock, and a dozen Russian soldiers poured in, swarthy and bearded ones, Kidirivites. They didn't carry themselves like military. Most even had their fingers on their triggers. It made the situation all the more terrifying. Their commander spoke to me in a dark, gravelly voice, with a thick accent. Hello. Is anybody else in the house? And with the Russians invading the house, we'll end there for today, and come back next time to see how the children handle it. In the meantime, hit the like, comment and subscribe if you want the channel to grow. Enjoy your coffee, if you can. And have a blessed day. Slava Ukraini.